Hi everyone, and welcome to today's Gallery Teaches Masterclass. My name's Lana, and in this session, I'll be looking at using AI to support multimodal storytelling in the classroom. They say that storytelling was the reason language developed in first place, and is the oldest form of teaching. I'd be surprised if there is a single language teacher out there who hasn't tried using stories with their learners. Yet storytelling can take various forms, and we all have our favorite ways to use stories and story-based activities in the classroom. In this session, I'll share a few favorites of mine, story-based activities that I find particularly effective as a way to engage students, spark their imagination, and create meaningful and memorable contexts for language use. But the spotlight here will be on multimodal storytelling, or ways to tell stories or use story-based activities that extend beyond traditional text. Now, the idea of using different modes or multimodality in the classroom isn't exactly groundbreaking. We've all tried mixing storytelling with images, sounds, and interactive activities to some degree, depending on what we had available and what seemed to work. But as our world gets more digital and more multimodal, it's becoming clear that this approach needs to take center stage in our teaching. And here's the thing, it's not about just throwing in different modes because we can. The real challenge and opportunity lies in how we integrate these modes in a way that truly helps them learn better. By and large, the options for using multimodality have been limited to what was available in published resources, like coursebooks, or open public sources, such as YouTube. But with the rise of AI, we now have a whole new range of tools in our ever-growing toolkit to help us explore, create, and modify existing story-based activities. So in today's session, we'll explore the concept of multimodal storytelling, discuss key considerations for using it effectively, and take a look at what generative AI has to offer. When we talk about multimodal input in English language teaching, we are moving beyond the written word to engage learners through media like images, sound, video, and interactive elements. Research shows that combining these modes significantly boosts learning. Mike Long, a key scholar in second language acquisition, emphasized the power of bimodal input, like reading a story while hearing it loud, which helps learners process and retain language more effectively. In our digital world, language learning is increasingly shaped by evolving technologies. But while multimodal input can enrich lessons, the key is thoughtful integration. As Matt Kessler put it, teachers must carefully consider and be conscious of the ways in which they integrate multiple modes into their practice. More isn't always better. We need to use our judgment as teachers to balance these modes and their elements. Sometimes a simple text with visuals is enough. Other times a full blend of modes may be needed. This way, multimodality and multimodal storytelling in particular can turn into a powerful teaching strategy. The term multimodality refers to the use of different modes or channels of communication for the purpose of conveying meaning. And each mode offers a unique way to convey meaning and support learning. And when we combine them, we create or may create more effective learning experiences. Now let's take a quick look at these 5 modes. The first mode is the linguistic mode. This just means anything to do with language, whether it's written text or spoken language. It's all about how we use words, whether we are writing them down or saying them out loud. The next one is the visual mode. It's about what we can see. This could be storytelling through video, animation, or still images. The oral mode refers to what we can hear or not hear. It includes music, voices, sounds, or even silence. Sometimes just hearing a particular piece of music can evoke certain memories or set the tone for the class. The next one is the gestural mode. The gestural mode is about body movements and gestures, like hand motions, facial expressions, or even posture. For example, a smile can tell you a lot, even without anyone saying anything. The spatial mode is how we use space and layout to get our message across. Imagine you are setting up a gallery walk activity in your classroom. You split the story and put parts of the story on the walls. As students move around the room, they see different pieces of the story and engage with each one. In this setup, the spatial mode is at play. The arrangement of these pieces around the room guides students' movements and interactions. How you space out the parts, the flow of the activity, or even where you place the parts influence how students engage with the material. In digital contexts, spatial mode can be seen in how information is laid out. For example, using bullet points to list items helps make the information clearer and easier for students to follow. Now, let's explore how these modes can be integrated into storytelling and which tools can be of help. But before we start doing that, let's take a moment to consider a few important factors that we need to consider when choosing a story. After all, it all starts with a good story that will build on and create effective story-based learning experiences. When we decide on the story to use in the classroom, we need to think about its complexity. Is the story too simple or too complicated for our students? Too simple and they get bored. Too complex and they get overwhelmed. Also consider the length, whether it's just right or if it's too long. It's important that the story features the target language well and gives learners a chance to practice it. I think we've all experienced that moment when we find a fantastic film or YouTube video that's incredibly engaging but doesn't quite align with the language we are focusing on, or the language level is way beyond our students' comprehension level. Next, relevance is key. For example, if you are teaching business English, Cinderella might not be the best choice. Though again, it's always possible to tweak the story to make it more relevant to particular learners. Relevance makes sure that the story's content connects with the learner's goals and interests, and learners can connect with the story to learn from it. We also need to keep age and culture appropriateness in mind to avoid any content that might be off-putting. And finally, we need to make sure that the story or activity feels authentic and reflects real-world scenarios in a believable and relatable way, making the language practice more meaningful. Now, when we have a good base and a good story, before blending in multiple modes, it's crucial to ask yourself whether using modes is truly justified for your lesson. Why are you incorporating different modes? Do they add real value to the learning experience? The purpose of focus is essential. If you add multimodality to engage students and add variety, that is, the focus is on engagement, it's only logical to expect improvement in engagement or enjoyability, which may or may not lead to improvement in performance. Reflect on whether these modes align with your learners' needs and objectives. For example, if your goal is to enhance vocabulary acquisition, does adding visuals or audio support the same effectively? If so, how? Consider how you might need to adapt or restructure the story to better fit your students' needs. Next, we need to see which combinations of modes like text, images, audio, or video would be most beneficial. More isn't always better. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes a simple text with a few images might do the job. Other times, you might need to pull out all the stops with a blend of modes. Incorporating multimodal input is about using our judgment as teachers to enhance learning, not just adding bells and whistles. We know our students, their needs, their struggles, and their learning environment, and we know what works best for them. And finally, we need to consider challenges and constraints that come with using different modes. Consider the resources you have, such as technology and internet access. For example, if you are in a low resource setting or have an unstable internet connection, you'll need to plan your activities accordingly. Also, think about the costs involved, including any potential time investment and whether you have the necessary tools. And now, with the development of generative AI, we have a whole new set of tools, making it easier to bring multimodality into the classroom and help us achieve what seemed to be next to impossible not so long ago. Instead of getting caught up in the endless stream of new apps and platforms, because there are so many new ones popping up all the time, let's focus on the technology itself. Let's look at what it offers and how we can use it for our needs. For our session, not to create content that's already out there, I chose to generate something WAG related. What is a WAG? A WAG is a made-up word used in the so-called WAG test to test people's ability to use the English plural form. One WAG, two WAGs. So first come large language models or chatbots sitting on top of them, such as ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and others. They are all about text and code. They can support multiple modes, primarily the linguistic mode, by generating written or spoken text. They can also support the visual mode by creating descriptions of images or visuals. And they can contribute to the audio mode by generating scripts for narration. They can also help make your content interactive by generating the respective code. There is a current tendency to make them multimodal by connecting them to other models, such as speech recognition or image generation models. And here's what our WAG looks like based on the original image from the WAG test. With AI, you can now generate images from text prompts, tweak them with specific descriptions, or create images in various styles based on existing images. Text to 3D and image to 3D models can support the spatial mode by generating 3D and panorama media that can later on be used in virtual environments. Now let's animate and give our WAG a voice with a text-to-speech model.
Hello, I'm a WAG.
Text-to-speech and speech-to-speech models can create voiceovers and sound effects. We'll explore this functionality a bit later. To animate the WAG, I used Labs, a video generator which generates videos based on text and images. It also supports lip syncing, though that's mainly for human-like faces. There are also text-to-music generators that can create songs or music pieces from text prompts. Now let's have a WAG party. I've provided particular apps that I use to create this media, but then again, nowadays it's more important to know the underlying technology rather than chasing the latest tools and the latest apps. These tools open up new possibilities for generating media that can be used to integrate multimodality. When working with AI, there are some key considerations to keep in mind. First, it's important to remember that AI is not a knowledge system. It doesn't know what is right or wrong. It has no reasoning. It can hallucinate or provide inaccurate information. So if you do not know the facts well enough, double-checking the output is crucial to ensure what you get is reliable. Second, AI is a bit of a game of chance. It doesn't always produce consistent results. So while sometimes the output can be spot on, other times it may completely miss the mark. This makes it important to manage expectations. Sometimes you'll hit a win, but other times the result may be quite disappointing. Third, expertise matters. The more subject matter knowledge you have, the better quality results you'll likely produce. Using AI effectively often comes with a learning curve, and it's worth investing time in understanding the tools to get the best possible outcome. And lastly, responsible use is key. For me, responsible use starts with avoiding simply replicating what's already out there and being clear on why you're using AI. That is, thinking about the value and originality you are adding. Now let's look at how you can blend different modes and use AI tools to create new classroom materials. I'll walk you through the process using an example from my Idiom Challenge series, a short video I made to help learners remember idioms better.
Can you guess the idiom? Unveiling secrets, hidden truths revealed.
Can you guess the idiom? To let the cat out of the bag, let's take a peek behind the scenes and see the workflow that can be used to create new resources. Every process starts with ideas, the what. For teachers who create teaching resources, the first step is to think before anything else if what you're making is going to be useful for your students' learning. Let's be real, nobody needs another clone of what's already out there. So you'd probably want to revisit your learning outcomes and learner needs and use this technology to create something new or add fresh perspectives to the resources you already have to help new learners learn better. In my case, I wanted to create a set of multimodal materials on idioms and move away from the quite traditional, here's a definition, now fill in the blanks approach, and combine that with etymology and storytelling. Once you have your idea, it's time for the second step, planning your story and creating a storyboard so you know exactly where the story is headed. As we are planning to use AI tools, it's a good idea to have everything very well planned. Again, Gen AI is still a game of chance, and you need to have a very clear idea of what you would like to make before you actually make it to judge if it hits the spot. When creating a storyboard, it's essential to think about which modes to blend to support the learning experience. It's also important to bear in mind that research shows that too much multimodal input can lead to cognitive overload, where the brain struggles to process all the information at once. And the key is to find a balance, just enough modes to clarify and reinforce the concept without bombarding the learner with too many stimuli. So as I was planning my video out, I figured a simple animation paired with a voiceover and some text might be just the right mix to get the idiom across and make it stick. Now let's look at some particular media and the story itself. Have you ever tried 6-word stories with your students? They are a very interesting format, short enough to be a quick read, but still capable of telling a complete story. One of the most famous examples is Hemingway's classic. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. It's amazing how just 6 words can evoke so much emotion and meaning. So I thought, why not apply the same concept to teaching idioms? My idea was to take idiom definitions and turn them into 6-word stories with keywords that capture the essence of their meaning. To bring the story to life, I decided to use a voiceover for the short story and then blended in the visual mode with an animated image of the cat that gave a more literal depiction of the idiom. To make it even more engaging, I wrapped the whole thing into a guessing game. This planning really guided my decisions on what media I needed to create for the project and helped me choose the right AI tools. To create all the media I needed, I used several AI tools. GPT-4, a large language model, helped me come up with the 6-word stories and generate image prompts for the text-to-image model. Again, to keep things more balanced, I chose images in minimalist one-line drawing style. And then I used an image-to-video model to animate the cat. And finally, I put everything together in Canva. So in a nutshell, that's the workflow I used to create this multimodal resource. It's also important to consider how you're going to use the resource you've created in the classroom to ensure it helps you reach your learning objectives. For instance, with the idiom challenge, you could use it as a simple guessing game, show the video to your students and let them make their guesses. Or you might make a more staged approach. First, have students read the 6-word story and make their guesses, then show the animated image to help them refine their answers. You could also take it further by turning it into a project assignment. For example, you could ask students to choose an idiom, create a short story and an image, and then challenge other teams to guess the idiom. Or they could focus on writing a 6-word story or creating an image that depicts the idiom's meaning. You could even have them create a set of images showing both the literal and metaphorical meanings of the idiom, or generate image prompts. Again, it all depends on the learning objectives you have. Investing your time and effort in creating new resources is totally justified when you are making something fresh that doesn't already exist. But again, with each year of teaching, our collection of go-to strategies and materials grows larger and larger. I'm sure you all have some favorite story-based activities or resources that work great in the classroom. It doesn't really make sense to replace them just because new AI tools are available. But it's definitely worth thinking about jazzing them up a bit, maybe adding a touch of multimodality where it could support the learning experience. Now I'm going to show you a few examples that I found really useful, things that would have been quite challenging, if not impossible, to pull off without the help of AI. First, the use of same language subtitles or captions. This isn't exactly new territory. Research has long shown that captions can significantly impact long-term implicit and explicit learning of spoken word forms. But with AI, it's now possible to not only add captions automatically, like what we often see on YouTube, but also to work with captions in ways that can further strengthen this effect. To demonstrate this, I'll be using a video on the etymology of the idiom "a skeleton in the closet." I made this video using a variety of AI tools. Actually, these are all AI tools. All the images, videos, animations, the voiceover, they are all generated by AI. And if you find it interesting or want to see the behind the scenes process, you can check out the How to Animate a Skeleton in the Closet video on the same YouTube channel, ELT Creatives. To add captions, I use the CapCut video editor. The process is straightforward. Just upload your video, click on Add Captions, and it automatically generates them. After that, you can edit the captions to correct any mistakes or add visual effects using different styles and animations. For this video, I wanted students to really notice key phrasal words and expressions related to the idiom, like hide away, date back to, and keep under wraps. So I added extra emphasis to these phrases. In the classroom, I would show the video twice. Now let's see what the final result looks like.
We all have secrets, but some of them are so scandalous that we prefer to keep them hidden away, like a skeleton in the closet. The phrase, "a skeleton in the closet," dates back to 19th century England, but what does it really mean, and how did it come about? One theory links the idiom to medical schools of the time. Anatomists often kept real skeletons for study, but the legality and morality of how these skeletons were acquired were sometimes questionable. To avoid scandal and legal trouble, these skeletons were hidden away, much like how one might hide an embarrassing secret today. Another interpretation suggests that the phrase comes from the idea of respectable Victorian families hiding away any hint of impropriety, figurative skeletons in their closets. Grave robbing was a common crime in the 18th and 19th centuries, as medical schools needed cadavers for study. These bodies were often obtained illegally and then hidden. The phrase began appearing in literature in the early 19th century, further cementing its place in the English language as a metaphor for hidden secrets. Today, a skeleton in the closet is used to describe a shameful or embarrassing secret one tries to keep hidden. But its origins remind us of the lengths people have always gone to keep their secrets safe. So next time you hear the phrase, "a skeleton in the closet," remember its intriguing origins and the timeless human desire to keep certain things under wraps.
The ease with which we can manipulate captions, coupled with large language models, offers great potential for us. Now, how many times have you found that perfect story or video only to realize is just way beyond our students' comprehension level? Which is often the case with authentic videos. When it's a text-based story, we can try to simplify the text, which is again not really the best strategy. But with audio or video, we often just give up on the idea altogether, right? With AI, we can now make them more accessible without diluting the content of the original text. And this is where we can implement the modified elaborated input approach, which was proposed by Mike Long. Mike Long argued that simplifying texts for the sake of comprehensibility limits the language to what students already know. That is, it limits opportunities for learning. And this approach doesn't involve simplifying the material, but rather using techniques like synonyms, paraphrasing, or additional explanations to make the original content easier to grasp. Just for illustration purposes, I've used this quote to show how it works. You can do it manually or use a large language model to help you and add this extra layer of scaffolding. This approach helps us make the most of authentic resources that might have seemed too challenging before, including videos and audio. And here's an example of how this can play out with an audio resource.
Constantly recycling the same grammatical patterns and limited set of vocabulary items results in impoverished input, which is counterproductive from an acquisition perspective. Acquisition potential is sacrificed for comprehensibility, thus excluding many new opportunities for learning. Comprehensibility is needed, but language acquisition from the input should not be sacrificed.
So by blending audio or video and captions with elaborated input, we can help learners understand authentic material better while still exposing them to real-world language. Another feature that can be really handy for storytelling is using voiceovers with text-to-speech or speech-to-speech models. These tools produce synthetic voices that can bring an extra layer of oral experience to our text-based stories. In the past, one common critique was that these voices didn't sound very human or emotional. But here's a quick experiment. Listen to this voice and decide if it sounds human or not. Ready? Let's see if you can tell the difference.
Hello, I'm Alice from England, and I'm an ASMR voice available for any of your needs.
So, is it human or not? Computer-generated voices or synthetic voices have come a long way, and they can sound pretty close to human voices nowadays. But then again, just like with any AI tool, the idea that you can simply input your text and get a perfect voiceover right away is pretty unrealistic. Most likely, you'll get a decent result with the correct lexical stresses, but if you want to add more nuance like prosodic features or prosodic stress or sentence stress, it's going to take a bit more effort on your part. That's where speech-to-speech models can really help us out and give us more control over the tone and rhythm, making the final product sound more natural. Now let's see how this works. First, we'll start with a text-to-speech model. Let's try something simple. I'll choose the voice and use exclamation marks to add some emotion.
Hello, lovely people. I hope you're enjoying the session.
It sounds all right for the text-to-speech model, but it could be better. Now let's try the speech-to-speech model. Here you can upload a pre-recorded clip or record your voice.
Hello, lovely people. I hope you're enjoying the session.
Now let's see what we get.
Hello, lovely people. I hope you're enjoying the session.
So what do you think? It's actually possible to tweak it further if you feel like it still needs improvement by playing around with similarity and style exaggeration settings. Another feature these models offer is generating individual sounds that can be used for story-based activities, including sound stories. Have you ever used sound stories with your students? Sounds can tell a story just as vividly as pictures. As a classroom aid, sounds can be highly effective as they are capable of providing real-world context. In the classroom, we usually create and share sound stories using a set of sound effects. To give students more control, you can use a soundboard with different sounds for a specific topic. For example, here's my soundboard for the topic travel and adventures. You can play any sequence of sounds and use a variety of story-based activities using this board. Yet sounds are not fully exploited in the ELT classroom, primarily due to quite limited sources of sounds. There are platforms of sounds online such as Sound Bible or Free Sound, yet oftentimes it's not always possible to find and put together a full set of sounds on a particular topic. And this challenge can be addressed by AI that now enables generating sound effects. Text-to-sound effect generators let you create fun and unique sounds, like cartoon voices or special audio effects. You can explore different sounds and let your imagination guide you. For example, let us choose animals and try probably horses.
Labs.
Or seagulls.
11 labs. 11 labs.
To each prompt, the tool will generate several options, and with a bit of luck, you will find the perfect sound for your project. In the classroom, you can use a range of storytelling activities with your sets of sounds. You can use individual sound effects when you play an individual sound and have students describe the situation, where they are, what they are doing, who they are with, and so on. You can also use guided storytelling when you play a sequence of sounds one by one and ask students questions after you play the sound effect. For example, you play the sound of the footsteps and ask learners to describe the person walking. Or you can play a sequence of sounds and have students create stories based on what they hear. Or have students select their sounds and plan and tell their stories using the chosen sound effects. I also thought it would be a good idea to include a more futuristic but quite promising chat mode that may get its development in the future and complement the range of multimodal storytelling activities that we can use in the classroom. I've called it talking to stories. You've probably come across platforms where you can create chatbots that take on specific roles or characters. These chatbots can interact with users and answer their questions as if they were real characters. To show how this trend can be used in ELT, let's look at a lesson plan by Miguel Miguez, a great teacher from Spain, who shares his materials on the same page ELT. His lesson, The Tumbleweed Invasion, is a great example of integrating this chatbot mode into story-based activities. I love how he uses this approach to make the story more interactive and engaging for students. In the course of the lesson, students learn about tumbleweeds. They watch a video and complete a set of exercises. Then students are introduced to Alex. Alex is a teenager who woke up one day only to find that his house had been invaded by tumbleweeds. Students should chat with Alex to find out how it happened, how he managed to solve it, or how he felt. Students are given the chart with some key information points that they need to find out, and they can also add their own questions. From a technical standpoint, Alex is a pre-programmed chatbot. You can upload your story, so it responds based on that, and you can also tweak how it behaves. For example, you can set instructions for the type of language to use, or ask the chatbot to ask students to clarify or rephrase questions if there are mistakes in them. Now let's chat with Alex.
Hey, I'm Alex, and you won't believe what happened to me today. So I wake up, right? And I look out my window, and guess what? Tumbleweeds. Everywhere. I'm talking about my whole house covered in these rolling, bouncy tumbleweeds.
Yes, actual tumbleweeds. We had a crazy windstorm last night, and it just swept all these tumbleweeds into my yard and against the house. It was nuts. No, I wasn't alone. My family was there too. We all woke up to this tumbleweed surprise and couldn't believe our eyes.
While it's not perfect yet, this type of storytelling could really take off in the future. So to wrap up, here are the key takeaways. When incorporating different modes into your teaching, always begin with the why. Focus on how these modes can enhance learning and make the experience more engaging for your students. Be creative and come up with new ideas instead of just replicating what's already out there. Use AI responsibly with reasonable expectations. It's a tool, not a replacement for thoughtful teaching. Start small. Remember that less is often more, and too much can lead to cognitive overload. Don't be afraid to experiment with new ideas and activities. But always keep this in mind. Learning comes first. Thank you.